Welcome to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast, where we like to really dive deep into the wisdom of Islamic traditions and, explore their relevance in our lives today. We're going to be going on a fascinating journey through the Sunan Abu Dawud, specifically Book 20, which delves into the world of drinks.
You've chosen a really intriguing topic, I think. It's not just about what we drink, but how these guidelines illuminate, broader Islamic values like mindfulness, gratitude, and even social responsibility.
Exactly. It's amazing how something as simple as just taking a sip of water can be imbued with so much spiritual and ethical significance. I think many of us have questions about the Islamic guidelines surrounding drinks. Like how did the prohibition of wine unfold in the early Muslim community? Were there other drinks that were considered, off limits? And what about everyday beverages like water or milk? Are there like specific guidelines for those as well?
Those are such great questions, and the Sunan Abu Dawud offers some fascinating insights into how these practices developed. Perhaps the best place to start is with the prohibition of wine, as it's a topic that often comes up in discussions about Islamic teachings.
That sounds like a great place to start. I think there's sometimes a misconception that the prohibition of wine was like a sudden and absolute decree, but I've heard that it was actually a more gradual process.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The prohibition of wine in Islam wasn't, an overnight event. It unfolded in stages, a gradual process that allowed the early Muslims to adapt and internalize the reasoning behind it. This gradual revelation is beautifully illustrated through the story of Umar ibn al-Khattab, one of the most prominent companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Umar ibn al-Khattab, that's a name that resonates throughout Islamic history. I'm eager to hear how he figures into this story.
So, Umar was known for his deep faith and his thirst for knowledge. He repeatedly sought clarification from the Prophet about wine, prompting the revelation of specific verses in the Quran that addressed this very issue. Imagine being a part of that community, witnessing these revelations unfold in real time, shaping their understanding of God's will.
Yeah, it must have been an incredible time of transformation and growth. It makes these texts come alive, knowing they were addressing real-life concerns and questions.
Yes.
So what were some of the questions Umar raised, and how did the Quran respond?
Well, one hadith recounts Umar pleading, "O Allah, give us a satisfactory explanation about wine." In response, a verse from Surah Al-Baqarah was revealed, stating, "They ask thee concerning wine and gambling. Say, in them is great sin." This verse laid the foundation, highlighting the sinful nature of wine and gambling, but it didn't yet explicitly forbid them.
So it was an initial step towards addressing the issue, but not the final word. Did Umar continue to seek further clarification?
He did. Umar, driven by his sincere desire to fully understand and implement God's guidance, again implored for a clearer understanding. This led to the revelation of a verse from Surah An-Nisa stating, "O you who believe, approach not prayers with a mind befogged." Notice how this revelation linked the consumption of wine to a very practical aspect of Islamic practice, prayer. Following this revelation, the call to prayer even included an explicit warning: beware, one who is drunk should not come to prayer.
That's a powerful connection. It's not just about an abstract prohibition, but about ensuring that one's state of mind is conducive to connecting with the divine. It also highlights the importance of communal responsibility, ensuring that the sanctity of prayer is maintained. Did this satisfy Umar's inquiries?
Not entirely. Even after these revelations, Umar still yearned for a more definitive and unambiguous command. His persistent seeking of knowledge prompted yet another revelation, this time a verse from Surah Al-Ma'idah, which declared, "O you who believe, intoxicants and gambling, dedication of stones, are an abomination of Satan's handiwork. So avoid, strictly all, such abomination." This verse, clear and absolute in its prohibition, finally provided the definitive answer Umar sought. The Sunan beautifully captures his response: we abstained.
It's fascinating how this gradual process unfolded, with each revelation building upon the previous one, ultimately leading to a clear and comprehensive prohibition. It speaks to the importance of seeking knowledge and understanding in Islam.
Absolutely. And it also demonstrates how Islamic teachings evolved in response to real-life situations and the genuine concerns of believers. This makes the Sunan, with its rich tapestry of stories and examples, not just a dry legal text, but a vibrant window into the lives of early Muslims.
It definitely humanizes these figures and makes their struggles and triumphs more relatable. Speaking of real-life situations, do we see any examples in the Sunnah of how this gradual prohibition impacted the daily lives of the early Muslims?
Yes, we do. There's a rather illuminating story about Ali ibn Abi Talib, another prominent companion of the Prophet. Before the final and definitive prohibition of intoxicants, Ali had consumed some wine and proceeded to lead the evening prayer. Under the influence, he recited a prayer incorrectly. This incident, recounted in the Sunan, vividly illustrates the real-world consequences of intoxication, even in a seemingly mild form.
It's a powerful reminder that even a small amount of intoxicants can impair judgment and potentially lead to errors in religious practice. It also underscores the wisdom of a clear and unambiguous prohibition.
Exactly. And it's important to clarify that the Arabic word khamr, often translated as wine, actually encompasses any drink that intoxicates. So the prohibition extends beyond just wine made from grapes to include any beverage that can lead to intoxication.
That's a crucial clarification. So it's not just about the specific type of drink, but about the intoxicating effect it produces. But did the Sunan go into detail about the specific types of alcoholic beverages that were forbidden?
It did. The Sunan explicitly lists beverages made from grapes, dates, honey, wheat, and barley as being prohibited. This list demonstrates the comprehensive nature of the prohibition, encompassing a variety of common sources of alcohol at the time. And here's a detail that might surprise you. The Sunan even states that turning wine into vinegar was forbidden.
Now that's unexpected. Why would turning wine into vinegar be prohibited? After all, it's no longer an intoxicant.
That's an excellent question, and it's one that has been debated by scholars for centuries. Some scholars suggest that this prohibition was intended to avoid any association with wine and its production, even in a transformed state. It was about completely severing ties with something that had been declared haram. Others proposed that it was to prevent the possibility of the vinegar being reconverted back into wine, eliminating any potential loophole or temptation. Regardless of the exact reasoning, it highlights the absolute and comprehensive nature of the prohibition, leaving no room for ambiguity.
It emphasizes just how seriously this matter was taken. I'm also reminded of that powerful hadith where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, curses not only the one who drinks wine, but also everyone involved in its production, distribution, and even transportation.
That hadith powerfully underscores the gravity of the prohibition and how it touches upon not just individual actions, but also communal responsibility. It's a reminder that our choices have ripple effects impacting not just ourselves, but also those around us.
So far, we've been focusing on what was prohibited. But did the Sunan also provide guidelines for drinks that were permissible? Did it address how Muslims should approach those beverages?
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here is that the Sunan goes beyond simply delineating what is halal and haram. It provides a framework for approaching even everyday drinks with mindfulness, gratitude, and an awareness of the divine presence.
That's a beautiful concept. I'm eager to learn more about how the Sunan guides us in approaching permissible drinks with that kind of intentionality.
One of the most striking examples is the Prophet Muhammad's, peace be upon him, preference for milk and his instruction to say a prayer when drinking it. The Sunan records him saying, "When one of you drinks milk, let him say, 'O Allah, bless us in it and increase it for us.'" This simple act transforms something as mundane as drinking milk into an opportunity for expressing gratitude to God and acknowledging his blessings.
That's such a beautiful practice. It elevates even the simplest act of drinking to a form of worship, reminding us to be grateful for the nourishment we receive.
Precisely. It's about recognizing and appreciating the blessings in every aspect of our lives, cultivating an attitude of gratitude, even in the seemingly mundane. And this mindfulness extends to the way we drink as well. The Sunan includes a hadith that discourages drinking while standing.
Yeah, I've heard of that hadith. But I've also heard that there are differing opinions among scholars about drinking while standing. Some argue that the Prophet himself was known to drink while standing on certain occasions.
You're right, there are differing interpretations. This highlights the complexities of Islamic jurisprudence and the importance of studying with knowledgeable scholars who can guide us through these nuances. However, the fact that the Sunan includes a hadith discouraging drinking while standing suggests that it was generally considered a preferable practice to drink while sitting.
It makes you wonder about the reasoning behind that preference.
Hmm.
Was it about promoting a more mindful and deliberate approach to drinking as opposed to just gulping something down on the go?
That's a very insightful observation. And it ties in with the overall theme of mindfulness that we've been discussing. Drinking while sitting might encourage a more contemplative and grateful mindset, allowing us to savor the drink and appreciate the blessings it represents.
It's amazing how something as simple as the posture we adopt while drinking can be imbued with such profound spiritual significance. And speaking of specific practices, Did the Sunan offer guidance on other practical matters related to drinks?
It certainly did. The Sunan covers a range of specific guidelines, many of which might seem surprising at first glance, but they often reveal a deeper wisdom when we delve into their possible reasoning. For instance, it prohibits drinking from the mouth of a water skin or inverting the vessel to drink.
I can see how those practices might have been related to hygiene, especially in the context of the time. It's interesting to see how these seemingly simple guidelines could have served both practical and symbolic purposes.
Exactly. And then there are those fascinating hadiths about covering vessels and mentioning Allah's name before drinking. These practices are linked to protecting food and drink from contamination and acknowledging the presence of the divine in everyday life.
It's amazing how even the most mundane actions can be infused with deeper spiritual meaning when we approach them with intentionality and awareness. It's like elevating the everyday to the sacred.
Precisely. And there's even a hadith that prohibits drinking from gold and silver vessels. This prohibition might seem surprising, but it actually aligns with other teachings that discourage extravagance and emphasize simplicity.
It's interesting to compare this prohibition to the prohibition of wearing silk and brocade for men. Both seem to point towards a deeper value system that promotes humility, contentment, and detachment from worldly possessions.
That's a very insightful connection. It's not just about the specific materials themselves, but about cultivating an inner state of detachment from ostentation and a focus on the things that truly matter. And what's really intriguing is that the Sunan doesn't just lay down hard and fast rules, it also delves into some of the nuances and gray areas within Islamic dietary guidelines.
Could you give an example of that? What are some of those nuances that the Sunan explores in relation to drinks?
A perfect example is the discussion of a drink called nabith. It's a non-alcoholic beverage made from steeping dates or raisins in water.
I've heard of Nabit. It sounds quite refreshing, especially in a hot climate. But I'm guessing there are specific guidelines regarding its preparation and consumption.
You're right, and that's where the nuances come in. The Sunan advises against mixing different types of dates or dates and raisins when making nabith. There are also differing opinions on the permissible duration for steeping nabith before it might begin to ferment and become prohibited.
So even with a seemingly simple drink like Nabid, there are considerations to keep in mind, guidelines to ensure that it remains permissible and doesn't inadvertently cross the line into becoming an intoxicant.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is that the Sunan includes a story about Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, peace be upon him, making a bead for him. The story highlights Aisha's meticulous care in following the guidelines, even in this seemingly minor matter.
That's a beautiful reminder that even in the smallest details, there's an opportunity to practice mindfulness and adherence to Islamic teachings. It's about striving for excellence in all that we do, no matter how seemingly insignificant.
Precisely. And that's what makes these texts so rich and relevant even today. They offer us a framework for approaching not just what we eat and drink, but how we live our lives with intention, awareness, and a constant striving to please God.
This has been a truly enlightening exploration of the Islamic guidelines surrounding drinks, especially focusing on the fascinating journey of understanding the prohibition of wine. We've covered so much ground already, from the gradual revelation of the prohibition to the specific types of drinks that were forbidden, and even the guidelines for permissible drinks like milk and nabid.
And we've only just begun to scratch the surface of the wisdom contained within Sunan Abu Dawud. There's so much more to uncover about the spiritual, social, and ethical dimensions of these teachings.
I'm definitely eager to continue this exploration and see what other insights we can glean from the Sunan. But for now, we'll take a pause and give our listeners a chance to reflect on the fascinating details and profound lessons we've covered so far.
Until next time, may peace and blessings be upon you.
Welcome back to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast. I'm excited to continue our deep dive into the Sunan Abu Dawud and its profound teachings on drinks. Yeah, I'm ready to dive back in. Last time we delved into that fascinating story of the prohibition of wine and how that unfolded gradually in the early Muslim community. We also explored, some guidelines regarding permissible drinks like milk and nabud.
Yes, we covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much to explore in the Sunan 1. One area I find particularly fascinating is how these ancient guidelines on drinks resonate with contemporary concerns about health and sustainability.
Well, that's interesting. That connection really intrigued me. I'm eager to hear how these teachings revealed centuries ago can offer insights into modern challenges.
Well, let's start with the prohibition of intoxicants. It's remarkable how this prohibition aligns perfectly with modern scientific understanding of alcohol's detrimental effects on health.
Yeah, I've definitely read countless research articles highlighting the negative impact of alcohol on the body and mind. But I'm curious, how did the understanding of alcohol in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, compare to our current scientific knowledge?
While they didn't have the sophisticated tools and methods of modern science, the observations about alcohol's harmful effects were remarkably astute. The Quran itself describes wine as something that infects the mind. And the hadiths we discussed earlier mention the Prophet forbidding every intoxicant and everything which produces languidness.
So even without the detailed medical knowledge we have today, there was a clear recognition that alcohol impaired cognitive function and overall well-being. It's like they intuitively understood what science is now able to confirm with empirical evidence.
Precisely. And this prohibition, while stemming from a spiritual and ethical perspective, ultimately serves to promote physical and mental health, which aligns perfectly with modern medical advice.
It's amazing how these ancient teachings were ahead of their time in recognizing the connection between our spiritual practices and our physical and mental well-being.
And that connection is key. The emphasis on mindfulness and gratitude that we discussed earlier, those principles also have profound implications for our health and well-being.
Well, I'm intrigued. How do mindfulness and gratitude as they relate to drinks connect to our health?
Well, consider this. When we approach even simple acts like drinking with intention and appreciation, we become more attuned to our bodies, their needs, and their signals.
It's like we're truly present in the moment, savoring each sip, rather than just mindlessly gulping down a drink. That awareness can make us more sensitive to how different drinks make us feel physically and emotionally.
Exactly. And that heightened awareness can naturally lead to healthier choices overall. For instance, remember the hadith about saying a prayer when drinking milk, thanking Allah and asking for more? That practice encourages us to truly appreciate the nourishment that milk provides its source and the intricate processes that brought it to our table.
It's a powerful shift in perspective. It's not just a glass of milk, but a gift from God, a testament to his bounty and mercy. It makes you appreciate the interconnectedness of all things.
And that appreciation, that awareness of interconnectedness brings us to the connection with sustainability.
Ah, yes. I'm eager to hear more about how these ancient guidelines can inform our understanding of modern environmental concerns.
Let's revisit the hadith about covering vessels and mentioning Allah's name before eating or drinking. While rooted in spiritual principles, these practices also have practical implications for preserving food and preventing waste.
I see the connection now. Covering food helps to protect it from contaminants and preserve its freshness, while mentioning Allah's name cultivates a sense of gratitude that might make us less likely to waste his blessings.
Exactly. And this idea of minimizing waste is at the heart of sustainability. Today, there's a growing global movement to reduce food waste. And these simple practices from the Sunan offer timeless wisdom that can help us address this pressing issue.
It's fascinating how these teachings can be interpreted on multiple levels. They offer spiritual guidance, practical advice, and even insights into living sustainably. It's like peeling back layers of meaning and discovering new relevance with each layer.
It is. And there's even more to uncover. The guidelines in the Sunan also touch upon the social aspects of drinking, encouraging practices that promote harmony and consideration for others. For example, remember the hadith forbidding drinking from gold and silver vessels?
Yes, we discussed how that prohibition seemed to promote simplicity and humility, a turning away from extravagance and ostentation.
Right. But if we connect this to a larger social context, it raises important questions about consumption equity and the impact of our choices on others.
That's a profound point.
Yeah.
In a world grappling with issues of wealth disparity and overconsumption, this simple guideline encourages us to examine our own patterns of consumption and how they might contribute to or alleviate social inequalities.
Precisely. The Sunan prompts us to consider whether our choices reflect a sense of gratitude and adoration, or whether they contribute to a culture of excess and disregard for the needs of others.
And the emphasis on moderation, on avoiding extravagance, that seems particularly relevant in today's world. We're constantly bombarded with messages encouraging us to buy more, consume more, and accumulate more possessions.
Absolutely. These teachings offer a counter-narrative to that consumerist mindset. They invite us to find contentment and fulfillment not in material wealth, but in gratitude, mindfulness, and connection with the divine. It's a reminder that true wealth lies in our spiritual well-being, not in the abundance of our possessions.
And perhaps also in the strength of our communities. I'm thinking of the hadith about the order of drinking, how the one who provides the drink should be the last to drink. We talked about how this practice prioritizes the needs of others.
Yes. That hadith beautifully illustrates the Islamic emphasis on communal well-being, on ensuring that everyone's needs are met before attending to our own. It's a simple act that speaks volumes about selflessness, generosity, and prioritizing the collective good.
It's a powerful lesson in humility and service, a reminder that we're all interconnected and responsible for one another. And that sense of responsibility extends even to the way we interact with the environment. I'm reminded of the hadith about not drinking from the mouth of a water skin.
Ah, yes. We initially discussed the hygiene implications of that practice, but it also speaks to a deeper respect for shared resources, for the interconnectedness of our actions and their impact on others.
It's like a recognition that we're part of a larger ecosystem. The way we drink, the way we treat shared resources, those choices have ripple effects that extend far beyond ourselves, impacting both our communities and the natural world.
Exactly. And that interconnectedness, that sense of responsibility to something greater than ourselves, lies at the heart of both the Islamic teachings and the concept of sustainability. It's about recognizing that our actions have consequences and striving to live in a way that promotes harmony and well-being for all.
This has been an incredibly illuminating conversation. I'm really starting to appreciate how these ancient guidelines offer not just spiritual direction, but also practical wisdom for navigating the complexities of modern life. Who would have thought that a discussion about drinks could lead to such profound insights about health sustainability and social responsibility?
It's a testament to the depth and richness of these teachings. They offer a holistic framework for living that addresses not just our individual needs, but also the well-being of our communities and the planet.
I'm looking forward to exploring even more fascinating dimensions of these teachings in part 3 of our deep dive.
There's much more to uncover. Until next time, may you find peace and blessings in your journey.
Welcome back to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast. It's incredible how much we've learned from just one book of the Sunan Abu Dawud.
It really is. We've delved into, that fascinating story of how the prohibition of wine unfolded, and we've explored the guidelines for permissible drinks, and even uncovered connections to modern concerns like health and sustainability, and we even touched upon, the social dimensions of these teachings.
And yet there's still more to discover. It's like each layer we peel back reveals even deeper wisdom and relevance.
Exactly. Today, I want to kind of delve into an aspect of the Sunan that we haven't really explored in depth yet. Its emphasis on etiquette and social harmony, even in the seemingly simple act of drinking.
Oh, that's an interesting angle. I hadn't really considered how drinking etiquette could be connected to broader Islamic values.
It's subtle but profound. Remember the hadith we discussed earlier about the prohibition of blowing into a drink?
Yes, I recall that practice being discouraged. Initially, I thought it was purely about hygiene.
Hygiene certainly plays a role, but it also speaks to a deeper respect for the shared experience of drinking, for the comfort and consideration of those around us.
I see what you mean. Blowing into a drink could be seen as disrupting that shared experience, potentially spreading germs or making others uncomfortable. It's about being mindful of how our actions impact those around us.
Precisely. And this consideration for the well-being of others extends to other aspects of drinking etiquette as well. For instance, the Sunan advises against drinking from the broken place of a cup.
That's a detail I wouldn't have thought about. But now that you mention it, it makes perfect sense. It's a simple act of kindness, ensuring that the person who uses the cup after you doesn't have an unpleasant experience.
Exactly. It's about extending that same awareness and consideration to even the smallest details of our interactions with others. This emphasis on social harmony is woven throughout the Sunan, guiding us towards a way of life that prioritizes kindness, respect, and a sense of interconnectedness.
It's a reminder that Islamic teachings aren't just about personal piety, but also about fostering a just and compassionate society.
And these principles are beautifully exemplified in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The Sunan contains numerous accounts of his exemplary manners, including his interactions with guests and his approach to sharing food and drink.
I'd love to hear an example. How did the Prophet embody these values in his daily life?
There's a story about a Bedouin who came to visit the Prophet and was offered milk. The Prophet insisted on giving the milk to the Bedouin first, saying, "He who is on the right, then he who is on his right."
It's a simple gesture, but it speaks volumes about his humility and generosity. He prioritized the needs of his guest, even though he was the leader of the community.
Exactly. And this act reflects a profound understanding of hospitality. It's about treating others with kindness and respect regardless of their social standing, ensuring that they feel welcomed and honored.
It's a powerful reminder that these Islamic teachings aren't meant to be confined to mosques or religious texts. They're meant to permeate our daily lives, shaping our interactions with everyone we encounter, even in something as simple as sharing a drink.
Precisely. And that's what makes these teachings so relevant and inspiring. They offer guidance not just on what to do, but also on how to be. They provide a roadmap for cultivating virtues like generosity, humility, and respect, virtues that enrich our lives and strengthen our communities.
Our deep dive into Sunan Abu Dawud has been an incredible journey. We've uncovered so much wisdom from the nuanced details of specific prohibitions to the profound implications for how we live our lives, how we treat each other, and how we care for the world around us. It's amazing to think that we started with just the simple act of drinking.
It really shows how something seemingly mundane can reveal such profound depths of wisdom and guidance.
Indeed. And on that note, we'll leave you with a final thought to ponder. How can we take these insights we've gained from the Sunan Abu Dawud and integrate them into our daily lives? How can we let these teachings guide not just our relationship with drinks, but our interactions with others, our care for the environment, and our pursuit of a more meaningful and fulfilling existence? May peace and blessings be upon you.
And upon you as well.